Mr. President, Americans tend to trust Republicans more than Democrats when it comes to national security. And boy, oh boy, the Democrats seem determined to demonstrate why that is the case. Yesterday afternoon, Democrats voted against the National Defense Authorization Act, the annual bill that authorizes spending for our nation's defense. Their ostensible excuse was the conflict in Iran. Well, in case they were operating under a misconception, I am happy to tell them that this year's National Defense Authorization Act is not an Iran funding supplemental. It is the annual legislation authorizing the basic needs of our military and the basic needs of our men and women in uniform. Needs that exist no matter what is happening in Iran. Let's just talk about what the Democrats voted against yesterday. They voted against a pay increase for our troops. They voted against quality of life improvements for our troops. They voted against the reform of the Pentagon's acquisition process. They voted against funding for unmanned systems like drones and counter-drone measures, an essential security need in this day and age. They voted against shipbuilding efforts to strengthen our naval fleet. They voted against measures to maintain our nation's air power. They voted against including 38 of their own amendments. I could go on here, Mr. President, but you get the point. Once again, Democrats are playing fast and loose with our nation's security. I say once again, Mr. President, because Democrats have been playing fast and loose with our nation's security all year. First, there was their record-breaking full government shutdown last fall, which affected our military and all of our nation's security agencies, to say nothing of the impact that it had on air travel. Then there was their record-breaking shutdown of the Department of Homeland Security, which lasted a staggering 76 days. Then, after that, Democrats refused to reauthorize a critical intelligence gathering tool, which the Democrat leader himself has described as, I quote, a very important tool for ensuring our national security, end quote. And now they blocked the Senate from considering the National Defense Authorization Act. And who knows what's next? Mr. President, in either a fit of self-delusion or an attempt to distract from their actions, Democrats are trying to peddle the narrative that somehow they can't agree to anything because Republicans are trying to make things partisan. That's right, Mr. President. Well, let me spend just a minute correcting the record here. The National Defense Authorization Act that Democrats voted against yesterday, bipartisan. That's right, Mr. President. The National Defense Authorization Act is bipartisan legislation. 4 Democrats voted for a bill at the committee markup. Democrats' record-breaking full government shutdown in the fall? Well, that was because they wouldn't accept a nonpartisan, short-term, clean government funding extension to allow bipartisan negotiations to continue. The Democrats' record-breaking Department of Homeland Security shutdown? Well, that was also because Democrats couldn't take yes for an answer. Democrats and Republicans had agreed on a bipartisan DHS funding bill. Democrats reneged on that agreement because they wanted to negotiate for more, and Republicans said yes to negotiation. And then Democrats shut down the department anyway, even though Republicans were willing to negotiate further. Even though the White House repeatedly offered a robust package of reforms. So as I said, Mr. President, I don't know whether it's self-delusion or deliberate deception, But I have heard few things more ludicrous than Democrats' narrative that they can't agree to legislation because Republicans are being partisan. Here are the facts, Mr. President. Democrats can't bring themselves to authorize funding for our nation's security, whether that's security at our border, funding for our military, or paychecks for our troops. It doesn't matter how bipartisan the bill is. Democrats can't bring themselves to support our nation's security. Is it politics, Mr. President? Do Democrats think that voting against our national defense and our nation's military will gain them points with their base? Or do they simply think they can afford to ignore our nation's defense needs until some hostile actor takes advantage of our weakness? I don't know, Mr. President, but I do know that our nation is less safe because of Democrats' actions.